Hey everybody, Travis Bowman here. I'm a fingerstyle guitar player and retro video game nerd. Let's talk 8BitDo controllers for retro video game systems. I've got 3 of them here. And unlike some of my previous videos, I did not get sent these for review. I actually purchased every single one of these with my own money. So you best believe that my opinions are going to be 100% my own in this video. 8BitDo has been around for quite some time, and they've made a ton of controllers for both modern and retro style systems. Now these 3 are the ones that I own, and these are the ones that I use the most. So we've got the Genesis controller, we've got the Super Nintendo controller, as well as a really interesting Neo Geo CD controller right here dead center. Now we're going to get up close and personal and take a look at these individually, but let's do a brief overview really quickly. This is cool, right? I mean, we've got modern controllers for old systems, which is something that we don't really get that often, but when it happens, it is pretty cool. And 8BitDo is very well respected for their manufacturing quality as far as the controllers are concerned. I really do enjoy using all 3 of these for their respected retro systems, but as we go into each controller, you'll find that sometimes it's not always perfect, and we'll get on that in just a moment. Don't do it. So why don't we go ahead and zoom the camera in just a little bit closer, and we'll look at each of these 3 controllers and talk about them individually, right? You bad chicken. Let's check out the Sega Genesis controller first. This is the M30, that's the model name from 8BitDo. You can see I've got 2 of them on the table here before us right now, and they're not actually the same thing. These 2 are a little bit different from one another. So on the top here we have the base M30, and this is a newer model called the M30 2.4 gigahertz. Basically, the top one is Bluetooth only, and this one has its own respected dongle for the Sega Genesis or Mega Drive. I use this one primarily for PC gaming. If I want to play some 2D games, I'll definitely use this controller on my PC. And this one right over here is my go-to Sega Genesis controller to this day. I freaking love this thing, man. And a lot of manufacturers have made some third-party Sega Genesis controllers that are pretty darn good, specifically those from Retrobit. And to be honest with you, I love the Retrobit controllers. However, this D-pad is pretty much frickin' perfect, and it's because of the plastic. This plastic has this satiny matte finish on it, and a lot of the controllers that are coming out for the Sega Genesis today have this really glossy type feel to it. And when you're trying to play some Street Fighter, man, that glossy finish, it will just have your thumb slip off of it all the frickin' time, and I can't stand that. This matte finish on this D-pad right here really goes a long way to keeping your thumb where you want it to be without any risk of some slippage there. And in an 8BitDo fashion, we've got the blue start button, which is really cool. And this is definitely your 6-button variation. You've got the XYZ ABC. The buttons are really nice and responsive, and you've got some other ones here. I believe this is also compatible with the analog Sega Genesis console, which I, of course, do not own because they're very rare and expensive. But you've got some shoulder buttons there if you want to use that as well, USB-C charging. This is my go-to Sega Genesis controller, and honestly, guys, it's really not that expensive at all, and it'll last you a long time. It's really robust. I've never had any issues with the battery life, and that goes with either one of these. I actually picked this one up at a convention for $5 frickin'. It was used for $5, and I've been using this on my PC ever since. It's a great Bluetooth controller for a lot of different applications. Highly recommended if you're in the Sega Genesis at all. You owe it to yourself to give this controller a try. Get it on Amazon. If you don't like it, return it. All right, so now we're moving on to the Super Nintendo. This is the SN30 2.4 gigahertz wireless gamepad and receiver. So you get both the receiver and the gamepad in the box. Same thing with the Genesis controller that I just showed you previously. So you can tell that this is very Super Nintendo-like. It's pretty much the exact same shape and size with a few changes here and there. You've got the start button, select button, and your shoulder buttons over there. This is a great alternative controller for your Super Nintendo if you're looking for a wireless solution. I don't know if you're like me. I cannot stand the controller wires when I'm trying to play video games. I've got cats, as you've seen not that long ago, and they go crazy for those wires, and they just won't let me chill out, and I have to have a wireless solution because of that. This is a fantastic controller. I love the the texture on it. It feels nice and smooth. The D-pad has that same sort of matte finish, which is really essential for somebody like me. I cannot stand that glossy finish on a D-pad. It's just a nightmare to deal with. But all the buttons are really nice and responsive, and you've also got your shoulder buttons up here, which feel just fine. We also have this. This is a legitimate Super Nintendo controller, and it's been fitted with an internal mod that allows you to use this as a Bluetooth controller. And you can see right there this little nipply thing on the top where that controller wire used to be. That's where you charge this guy. And it's a super bizarre mod, but it works, man. And this is from the same company. This is 8BitDo. They've done this for a bunch of different controllers. I've tried it out on the GameCube as well as the Super Nintendo, and I'm very curious to do a very similar mod on my original Sega Genesis 6-button controller. It's working. It works great, actually. And this is a real legitimate Super Nintendo with authentic parts. The only thing that has been replaced is the PCB inside of that controller. It's not in there anymore. It's been replaced with a very similar one from 8BitDo with, of course, their rechargeable battery inside of it. So either one of these are a good solution if you're trying to do a wireless controller for your Super Nintendo. This is obviously going to be the cheaper option. You get an all-in-one package there with the controller with that dongle that's specific to your Super Nintendo. If you wanted to, you could go this route if you've got a really nice condition original Super Nintendo controller. The only thing is that when you purchase the mod, you have to buy the dongle separately, and they're both about $25 each. So after shipping, you're looking at $60 to turn your old controller into a new wireless one, essentially. So I'll leave that up to you to decide, but I did do a dedicated video on this mod if you want to check it out, link in the description below. So let's move on to the last controller. Okay, so now we've got the 8BitDo Neo Geo wireless controller. That's just what they're calling it. This one's interesting because it's obviously a bigger box than the other two, but look down here on the bottom left, 2.4 gigahertz, Bluetooth or USB. So you've got 3 different ways that you can use this controller, which is a really nice addition. This is what it looks like up close and personal. It's extremely similar to a legitimate Neo Geo CD pad. Now, a lot of people really, really love this controller design, and I'm not talking about 8BitDo in particular, I'm talking about the original controller. It's a highly coveted controller that's very expensive, and they're really getting kind of difficult to find, at least for a decent price. You're going to be paying $80+ for one controller. This controller is not anywhere near that price. I think it's about $35 or so, which is a really, really good deal, depending on what you want to use it for. If you want to use this on, your PC, just plug it up, or you can use the wireless dongle that comes with this. If you want to use this controller on a legitimate Neo Geo CD system, they don't include a dongle to do that. In fact, they don't include a dongle for purchase at all for that purpose, which is really a darn shame because it says 8BitDo SNK Neo Geo. It's clearly a Neo Geo CD pad, and the Neo Geo AES as well as the Neo Geo CD have the same controller input. So I don't know why they have not made a dongle for those systems, and I can guess. It's probably because not a lot of people are into it like they are with the Genesis and the Super Nintendo. Those two systems are vastly more popular. But if you're going to make a dedicated controller that's clearly a Neo Geo CD pad, I feel like they should have gone that extra step and offered a dongle, at least for purchase on the side. An extra purchase, yeah, sure. But they didn't. So as a result, we have to use another dongle entirely. This guy right here, this is the Neo BT. It's a Bluetooth dongle that's powered by your console, whether it's the Neo Geo CD or the AES. This is how I use this controller on real hardware, and this is not cheap. Unfortunately, it's kind of pricey. The controller is not bad, but once you add the cost of this in there, it gets a little ridiculous. But here I am with both of them, and this is exactly what I use to play this controller on original hardware. The main difference between the real Neo Geo CD pad and this guy right here is the fact that the travel distance is just a little bit larger than on a legitimate CD pad. The clickiness is there, so props to them for throwing that in there because that's one of the most iconic things about this controller is the micro switchy clicky stuff. And you know, once those older controllers start to break down, they're incredibly difficult to repair. So it's nice to have an alternative, and that's exactly what I do with this. I've got two legitimate Neo Geo CD pads, but they're in storage right now. I'd rather use something like this or the Neo Geo arcade stick. And for the most part, it's pretty much the same thing, pretty much the same feel. The buttons feel very similar. You've got start and select as well as these other ones that you can use on your PC, and they've added some shoulder buttons as well, a little reset button right there, and USB-C for charging. Now, the interesting thing about this guy back here, in the dead center of the back, you've got a switch to choose between Bluetooth and 2.4 gigahertz mode. If you're going to be connecting to your computer with the dongle, you definitely want to flip that guy to 2.4 gigahertz. But if you're using a Bluetooth solution like on your phone or something like that, or you're using the Neo BT on original hardware, flip that guy to the Bluetooth position for sure. This is one of my favorite controllers in my collection because it is a freaking wireless Neo Geo CD pad. And for the most part, like I said, it's not 100%, but it's pretty damn close to the actual original controller. And this is one that I use quite a bit because I do love my Neo Geo systems. But what do you guys think about these 8BitDo controllers? Personally, I think they're built extremely well, and the price point is exactly where it should be for something like this. We're in the $20 to $30, $40 range, but that's pushing it for these controllers right here. These go on sale all the time. They're not exactly the brand new stuff anymore. They've been out for a couple years. So you could probably find a really good sale on these if you look hard enough. I really do enjoy using these controllers as opposed to the original controllers just because, like I said, they are wireless and they're that much easier to use as a result. I really wish that they would have gone the extra step with this Neo Geo CD pad and included a dongle for the Neo Geo system, but I can completely understand why they wouldn't want to do that. It's a very small market these days, but it's still a passionate fan base that would have definitely appreciated that. I've got a dedicated video on this controller right here as well as that Bluetooth receiver that you saw earlier. If you want to check that out, the link is in the description below. If you're into retro video games, you're in the right place, man. I've got so many more videos exactly like this on my channel. Reviews, demos, stuff like that. If you guys want to check that out, feel free to do so. The link is in the description below. Thanks so much for watching. Thank you for subscribing, and I'll catch you guys at the next video. Bye-bye.